I'd like to introduce with great pride Giima Laforme, the great leader of the Mississauga of the New Credit First Nation, who will certainly give us a message about what we need. Giima presented the opening message at the Rotary International Convention in Toronto in front of 20,000 Rotarians. Please welcome Giima, the great leader, Laforme. Thank you.
Ani, Bazu, Nagani and Nishtabek and Nini, Stacey Laforme, Disnakas, Credit Dunzaba, Mainga Dotum, Mississauga, Nishtabe Dowell. So I just told you my name and my language, it's Nagani and Nishtabek and Nini, which roughly translates to Leeds People Man. I told you my clan. I told you where I'm from, the Mississauga Nation. My clan is Wolf on my mother's side and Turtle on my father's side. I told them when I opened the Toronto International that I choose to follow the wolf side because, well, it's sexy. but of course I was only joking. Both have very much value in our system, in our clan system. So I'd like to acknowledge the Creator, the world around us, and our place within it. I'd like to acknowledge the many nations that walked this land in the past, the many nations that walk it today, and welcome you to the treaty lands of the Mississauga of the Anishinaabe. So I know that that's where I'm from. I know that's not where you are right now, but it's always important to understand where you stand. And so I'd just like to ask you a question. It's, how do you like the shirt? I'd get up and spin around for you, but really I'm not wearing any pants. No, I'm just kidding. I wear this shirt and the flowers on it because it helps me remember my obligation to our Mother, the Earth. You know, the flowers on it says, I remember you, I remember my obligation, and using this shirt, I teach others this same thing. And so I encourage people to always wear something that reminds them of the earth so they can do the same thing. They can teach their children and their friends about the earth because it's, you know, one step at a time. So I encourage them to wear whatever you can that reminds you of the earth. And, you know, it doesn't have to be flowers because not every man can pull off flowers, but it's something that reminds you of your obligation to the earth. You know, I was in a store one day, and I told this story before, but I always like to tell it. I was in a store one day, and a man came up to me and says, "That's a nice shirt." I said, "Thank you." And he said, it takes a special kind of man to wear a shirt like that. So I chuckled and said, "Thanks." But when I was young, I would have been too afraid to wear this shirt, too afraid what others would think, too afraid of what others would say. But the truth is, we should never have to change to fit into society. The world around us should adapt to embrace our uniqueness. And that is the fundamental truth of this world. So it's a pleasure to be here. I know I frustrate the people that have to work with me. You know, they're very task-oriented, and I'm not. So they have a very disciplined regimen, and I'm pure chaos. So it's like trying to wrangle me is very difficult to get me to comply and do things in an orderly fashion. I always do them, but it's just normally on my timelines. But so that reminds me, when you talked about the International Rotary in Toronto, I really appreciate that event. I loved it, and I want to say I appreciate the Rotarians, the things you do, the way you help people. And I also want to say that I appreciate your diligence to detail. Now, as you can see, so when I went to Toronto, they invited me, you know, maybe a year in advance, and told me what they wanted and said, we'll be in touch with you later on. 6 months come, they told me what they want. I procrastinate. 3 months later, they say, here's what we want. I procrastinate. A month later, and they go, Chief, we need your bio at least. Send us your bio and your speech. So I sent my bio. And, I thought that was a good start. So 2 weeks left, and they said, we really need your speech to make sure that it's, that it fits the program. We want to be able to make sure it's going to work for you. So I said, okay. So I sat down and wrote the speech maybe as a week to go, sent it off, and they came back with an email that says, Chief, according to our word counter, you're not gonna fit into the time we've allotted for you. So I said, okay, I'll take a poem out, because I included 2 poems. So I took one poem out and I sent it back to them. And of course, they said, you must come down the day before and do a rehearsal. I'll say they put me up in a really nice hotel, and I like that. So I went down the day before and I went to my rehearsal. And when I got there, it was the first times I ever used the teleprompters. And I got to say, I love those things. Anyway, so I read through the speech, and when I got done, I said, oh, you took out both poems. Oh, I don't think I can do this. I thought for a moment, I said, I don't think I can do this. I think you're going to have to get somebody else to do your welcoming. And realizing how diligent they are to detail, I never thought, geez, I'm really asking a lot of them right now. So anyway, I said that to them, and somebody left the room, and they came back and said, Chief, you can take the time you need to do your speech. And so I included both poems. And when we're done with that, I said, hang on a second, I want to say something to you. I said, I want you to, I want you to step back and think about what you're doing in the moment. Because we all get so caught up in that moment that we forget the big picture. So always step back and make sure that that moment and the way you're acting in that moment is in keeping with your vision of who you are or who you want to be. At the time, I took it as a faux pas and something went wrong. But looking back on it and reflecting, I'm so glad it happened, because it reminded me of the same thing. Because we all get caught up and we all forget. Take that step back and make sure in that moment you are who you genuinely are. Otherwise, you don't do justice to your vision. And so I thank the Rotarians for that experience. And I loved it, and I loved the messaging, and the messaging I carry with me still for others. Now, I wanted to read you open with a prayer, but I thought I would do a poem, a different poem. That this one's called Uncommon Ground. No one thing can define us, for we are complex creatures dreamed in the mind of the Creator. We laugh when we should cry. We cry when we should laugh. We joke when in pain. We smile because tears could consume us. We love unconditionally and totally. We understand that family should come first, yet family is not defined solely by blood. We are quick to anger, yet no one forgives faster. We are loyal and we are strong. When we commit, we are unwavering. We have survived much, but do not mistake adaptation for resignation. You will always see us, for we will always be here, standing for what we believe in, standing beside each other, doing what is right for our children, our future. We remember our obligation to our Mother the Earth, and we remember our place upon her. We are a proud people, an honorable people. We do not always do right, for we are human and prone to the follies of humanity. Yet we strive to be better, to make each other better, to make the world a better place for the children. I know the Creator smiles upon us, no matter where we are or what we do, for the love of a child is unconditional. No matter where life takes you, walk proud. I read that because I truly believe that everyone hears something of themselves in that poem. Maybe only a little, but something. And that teaches us that no matter how far apart we may seem, we are never so far that we can't find common ground. And I also believe that that's another fundamental truth of our world. So I want to talk about change, about doing better, about a paradigm shift. And you have to realize that change cannot be forced from the external. External can be a catalyst, but change comes from the inside. You can't force your partner to suddenly change. You can't force your friends to care about what you care about. Facts and numbers will not work. If it did, there would be no pandemic. There would be no climate change. So let's start changing the way we view the world. And by doing so, we change the way we view each other. This might seem complex, but let's just start with one simple thing. Let's change the way we view climate change. The earth isn't a problem that needs to be solved. She's a soul that needs to be saved. Now, suppose you've made this change. It may seem a small thing, but you've made a paradigm shift in the way you view your place in the world. You have now changed the way you view climate change, and because all things are interconnected, you have not only changed how you view the world, you have changed how you view yourself. And it is impossible to enact a change like this without affecting every stage of your life, every aspect. If you just change a simple thought, you change everything, because it's about respect, about caring, about love, about humility, about courage. And these things are teachings that will affect everything. You have also changed your daily interaction with the people you love and the strangers you meet. And since everything is interconnected, you change them as well. You will impact them, maybe only a little, and maybe only for a short time, but it'll happen. Now, suppose your change doesn't impact enough people, and we can't convince them to shift their thinking on climate change. That would be sad, but that's okay, because we must remember there is more to this than the effects on our Mother the Earth. This, at its core, is about the change affects you. I'm not saying this is a magical answer to climate change. I know it's important to do things in a moment, to take the necessary step. Let's look at our carbon footprint. Let's grow gardens. Let's write letters. Let's do what needs to be done. But let's also start building this new ideology, which, as it happens, is my people's old ideology, although we need to be reminded of it. So we fight for today. We plan for the generations to come. But this change in thinking is also for us, for you, to live in a good way. And maybe you won't change the world, but you'll impact your family, your friends, and your children. Maybe it won't change this world, but it will change your world. And that in itself is the answer. So that was me trying to inspire you. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't, but the fact is that in our lives, we're inspired all the time. We are inspired by speakers, we are inspired by events, we are inspired by activities, and things that in the moment move us to affect change, to take action. Yet the problem with inspiration is that it's fleeting. Yet it doesn't go away completely. In the moment of inspiration, in that moment of passion, the commitment is strong, but for most, the moment fades, mostly because change is difficult, slow, and hard. So eventually we go back to the former, the life we know, the comfort. But there are times, moments when that inspiration will return. A small voice quietly, softly calling you, doing some mundane act, you'll suddenly remember that moment you were inspired. Maybe negatively, maybe fondly, but it'll flash across your mind. Most will push it away until eventually the voice, the call, will come less and less, fading into the background of our consciousness, seldom stirred. Yet that's the trick, the point. Don't let it. Don't ignore it. Pick it up, embrace it, be inspired again, take action again. I guess what I'm saying is that inspiration may be fleeting, yet it never truly leaves. It exists buried in our subconscious. The trick is to answer when it calls. Making difficult change can survive a moment of inspiration, but not a lifetime of commitment. I mean, you may know this given the work you do, but it never hurts to be reminded and to remind others. So I know I only have 13 minutes, I believe, on the agenda, but I want to read you another poem if I could. It's a poem I wrote in the midst of COVID, but also when we were seeing the difficulties with racism and hate. And it's called My Wish. My wish is to see you stand as one, to support each other through the good and the bad. Do not let jealousy or past issues cloud your reason. Do not let small-mindedness stop you. Do not let loss and grief overwhelm you. It is so easy to be divided by pain and hurt. Yet it is the time to stand together, to love one another. Faced with horror, do not become a part of it. Rather, rise above it with the strength of your ancestors. Let the children see you as you wish to be seen. Stand in the light in the darkest moment, and you will leave a legacy beyond wealth or power. You will leave a world full of hope, and hope is the brightest star in our best possible future. So I'm going to wrap up now and just say I always enjoy working and attending the events the Rotarians have. You know, don't forget me. If you ever need me again, give me a buzz. I'll come with some poems. And so I just want to say, Miigwech, be safe, be heard, Bamapi.
Thank you so much, Giima. That message was so heartfelt, so uplifting. I really appreciate that. And I want to let you know, someday I hope that you and I get to go for a walk in the tall grass. And those of you who know about Giima's book, you'll know what I'm talking about. This guy is so fantastic, and that's why he's Giima, the great leader.